In the blink of an eye, a dark knight tears through a horde of lizard men, his blade a blur of black. The monsters are torn to pieces, their bodies hitting the ground with heavy thuds. Nearby, a merchant leans against his cart, panting, having just been saved from the attack. But the merchant doesn't look relieved. He stares in horror at the brutal aftermath, his face pale and sweating. Instead of a savior, he sees a monster. The Dark Knight approaches, his heavy armor clanking with each step. Terrified, the merchant shrinks back, stammering, "WH, what the devil are you?" Ignoring his question, the knight brings his weapon down, shattering the merchant's cart and its contents with a single swing. With his spear resting on his shoulder, the knight looks down at the terrified merchant and the broken bottles on the ground. He remarks coolly on the man's booming business. The scene shifts to a nearby town. The Dark Knight, Kai, drags the merchant towards the gates as a guard watches from the wall, curious about the commotion. As Kai makes his way through the streets, the villagers recoil in fear. They whisper and hide, their eyes filled with suspicion and terror, leaving a clear path between themselves and the blood-soaked knight. Kai throws the merchant before the city guards, reporting that he was engaged in illegal business. The merchant, surprisingly, begs to be taken into custody, screaming that he'd rather be arrested than spend another minute with the monster who saved him. He calmly explains to the bewildered guards that he was on patrol when he found the man illegally transporting cursed drugs while being attacked by lizard men. With the matter settled, Kai pumps his fist with a bright, innocent smile. To him, it's simple. He's just gotten rid of another villain and made the world a little bit safer. But one of the guards pulls him aside, advising him to be more mindful of his appearance. He points out that as a Dark Knight, covered in blood, he's scaring everyone to death. As if to prove his point, civilians flinch and cry out when Kai glances in their direction. The guard tells him to go get cleaned up while they handle the merchant, muttering that this is always the problem with Dark Knights. Walking away, Kai looks down, wondering what he's done wrong. He thinks to himself that his blood-drenched armor should be seen as proof that he's defended the people, a badge of honor. But the whispers of the townspeople tell a different story. They're convinced he's an assassin and someone to stay away from. Kai ponders how he can ever get them to acknowledge the pride and duty of the Dark Knights. As he walks along a quiet road, a sudden, rhythmic thudding sound catches his attention, growing louder and closer. He turns to see a carriage tearing down the road, completely out of control. The horses are panicked, running wild. The driver desperately tries to rein in the stubborn horses, but it's no use. Inside the carriage, a young girl is thrown about by the violent movements. Kai rushes to the scene, checking on the injured driver and passenger. He asks what happened, and the man explains that they were suddenly attacked by monsters. The word monsters snaps Kai to attention. As a piercing cry echoes from the nearby woods, he whips his head around, searching for the source of the danger. The sound carries a terrifying power. Birds scatter from the trees, but their flight is cut short as they're instantly turned to stone. They drop from the sky like rocks, shattering on the ground below. From the trees emerge monstrous, bird-like creatures with reptilian wings and a terrifying screech. Cockatrices. They land with heavy thuds, their stony gaze causing the very ground to crumble. Kai stands ready for a fight, but the injured driver grabs his leg, pleading for help. It's not him he's worried about, but someone still inside the carriage. Without hesitation, Kai leaps forward, grabbing the reins of the panicked horses to stop the carriage from crashing. But it's too late for the horses. The cockatrices descend, their petrifying ability turning the animals to stone instantly. Kai quickly analyzes the situation, knowing he must neutralize their petrification breath. Just then, one of the monsters lands directly on top of the carriage, ready to strike. His eyes dart to the carriage window, where he sees a terrified young noblewoman, Shelfer, trapped inside as the carriage rattles violently. Seeing her in danger, Kai immediately turns his attention from the monsters to the girl. He places himself between her and the monsters, drawing his massive sword and telling her not to be afraid. Shelfer looks up at him, not with fear, but with wide-eyed surprise. Letting out a war cry, Kai launches himself into battle, leaping directly at the nearest cockatrice. He expertly shoves the point of his blade straight into the creature's open mouth, silencing its deadly screech. With a powerful swoosh, he tears his sword sideways. The monster wobbles, its life fading in an instant. The cockatrice's head splits in two, a clean slice from the force of the attack. As the body of the first monster falls, Kai lands gracefully, already eyeing his next targets. Two more, he mutters. He wastes no time, jumping right back into the fray to face the remaining two creatures. He slides low to the ground, dodging a clumsy attack from one as the other swoops in from above. He counters instantly, his blade finding its mark and silencing another monster. Just as he finishes his attack, the third cockatrice lunges, its claws aimed straight for him. Kai completes his spin, his sword slicing through the second monster's neck and sending its head flying. A splash of blood hits his face. With a grim expression, he turns to the final monster as it lets out a furious roar. Only one more left. The last cockatrice lunges, and Kai meets it head-on, grabbing its massive claw with his bare hand. As it starts to drag him, he glances up at the sun, a new strategy forming in his mind. He's being dragged across the ground, but Kai's grip on the cockatrice's leg doesn't loosen. He glares at the monster, taunting it. "Is that all you've got?" Provoked, the monster swings its head around and bites down hard on Kai's arm. But this is exactly what he was waiting for. Despite the pain, he knows he has the creature right where he wants it. Just as he's about to finish the monster, he sees the carriage rolling away, heading straight for a cliff. He screams for the girl to get out, abandoning his fight to race towards her. But it's no use. The carriage door has been jammed shut, the wood warped and cracked by the monster's petrifying breath. Skidding to a halt, Kai yells at Shelfer to get back from the door. Without a moment to spare, he throws his full body weight against it, shattering the frame to get her out. Inside a violently shaking carriage, a young man with dark hair named Kai kneels with his sword drawn. He reaches out to a terrified blonde girl, telling her to give him her hand. Suddenly, the entire carriage goes over a cliff. As it crumbles apart, Kai grabs the girl, Shelfer, and pulls her into his arms, yelling at her to cover her head. In a split second, Kai leaps from the plummeting vehicle, clutching Shelfer tightly as the carriage continues its freefall behind them. The carriage explodes on impact, but Kai has already landed them a safe distance away. He holds Shelfer as she covers her ears, still shaking from the shock. Once they're safe on solid ground, Kai gently tells her it's okay and to breathe slowly. He then asks if she's injured anywhere while she tries to calm herself. Still flustered, Shelfer assures him that she's fine. She gathers her composure and begins to thank him for saving her. But Kai simply looks down, remaining silent. Kai stands and looks over the cliff, apologizing that while he saved her, he wasn't able to save the horses. Shelfer clasps her hands, still processing the near-death experience. Shelfer quickly dismisses his apology, insisting that the fact he saved her life is all that matters. It seems she's about to introduce herself properly. Before she can, a group of riders gallops towards them, shouting for Princess Shelfer. The revelation stuns Kai, who realizes he just saved royalty. The guards immediately surround Kai, their weapons drawn. Seeing his dark and intimidating appearance, they mistake him for an attacker and demand to know who he is. The lead guard points his weapon at Kai, ordering him to disarm and assuming he was after the princess. But Shelfer's voice cuts through the tension, yelling at them to stop. She firmly stands in front of her guards, declaring that Kai is the one who saved her life and that she won't tolerate any disrespect towards him. The princess then turns to Kai and apologizes for her guard's behavior. Kai, clearly not used to this kind of attention, is at a loss for words. Hearing this, the guards immediately kneel before both the princess and Kai. They apologize for their insolence, explaining they were simply overcome with concern for her safety. Just then, Shelfer's attention shifts as she spots the carriage driver, wounded but alive, being helped by one of the guards. She gasps, worried about his injuries. Without hesitation, Shelfer announces she will heal him immediately. She closes her eyes and begins to cast a spell, Holy Recovery Magic, Healing Embrace. The driver tries to protest, saying she shouldn't waste such powerful magic on him, but Shelfer insists. As she holds her hands out, his wounds miraculously vanish, stunning everyone with her holy power. He notes to himself that she's not only kind and affectionate, but also extremely capable. The driver, now fully healed, thanks the princess profusely. He observes her with her men, seeing that she's a capable leader who has earned their complete trust. With the situation now under control, she turns her full attention back to him. She offers her deepest gratitude before formally introducing herself. Shelfer Clan Astrio, the fourth princess of the Kingdom of Astria. Shelfer thinks to herself that she was on her way to inspect the Holy Expert Academy when the accident happened. Noticing her change in mood, Kai asks if something is wrong. The name of the academy echoes in Kai's mind. The Holy Expert, an elite educational institute known for producing the continent's most powerful holy royal guards. A sudden realization hits him. Holy jobs, paladins, the trust people have in them, to become like her. He finally sees the answer. That's it. Kai clenches his fist with newfound determination, convinced that this is the only path for him. His sudden intensity leaves Shelfer completely confused. He turns to the princess and says he has a request. Surprised, Shelfer agrees immediately, promising to do anything within her power for the man who saved her life. Looking her straight in the eye, Kai makes his unbelievable request. He wants her to help him enroll in the Holy Expert Academy. Shelfer sizes him up, thinking that he certainly seems to have the makings of a knight. She clarifies if he means the Holy Expert, and he confirms without hesitation. To his surprise, she happily agrees, even offering to personally recommend him since she's in his debt. She then smiles and says he can call her Shell before realizing she still hasn't heard his name. He finally introduces himself as Kai. The princess promises to handle the paperwork and looks forward to seeing him at the school in a few days. After they part ways, Kai looks out at the distant academy, his mind now set on this new, ambitious goal. He grips his sword, filled with a new sense of purpose. This is the first step to getting everyone to acknowledge Dark Knights, and he vows to become the most powerful royal paladin ever. And just like that, Kai arrives on campus, dressed in a new, bright white uniform. He takes his first look at the legendary Holy Expert Academy. The Holy Expert is a massive, regal institution, a royal school established to train students for the highest echelons of holy professions. It is famous across the land for producing the world's most renowned elites, from paladins and priests to bishops and cardinals. For any aspiring holy warrior, it is the one and only gateway to joining the Holy Royal Guards, the strongest order on the continent. For Kai, this single step marks the beginning of his journey. With unwavering resolve, Kai knows this is not just about becoming the strongest. It's the first step towards changing the future for all Dark Knights. The scene flashes back to a month before his enrollment. At the Bloodia household, Kai's younger sister, a necromancer named Bloodia, looks at him in utter shock. Chloe is completely bewildered, telling him there's no way he can enroll in a holy academy. But Kai calmly ignores her protests, simply repeating his decision. Kai's mother, the elder witch Noche Bloodia, chimes in. But while her daughter panics, Noche is simply delighted she gets to prepare another lunchbox, much to Chloe's disbelief. Chloe glares, trying to get her mother to see how absurd the situation is. Noche, however, just reassures her that she won't cut any corners on her lunch. Frustrated, Chloe yells that her mother is completely missing the point. Chloe frantically points out the absurdity of his plan. He's a Dark Knight, a prodigy who even skipped a grade at their own school. There's no reason for him to go to a holy academy. But Kai calmly tells her that there's a point. He has a new goal he's aiming for. His quiet confidence just confuses Chloe even more. With a proud smile and a dramatic pose, Kai declares his grand ambition, to become a royal paladin. His declaration is so shocking that it sends a flock of crows flying from the roof. Chloe is left completely speechless, her mind blown by the ridiculousness of his dream. The title of Royal Paladin is reserved for the top 12 holy royal guards of the Istria Kingdom. They are the strongest warriors in the land, wielding treasured weapons passed down for generations to achieve impossible feats in battle. A young girl, Chloe, panics, unable to believe what her brother is saying. She asks if he even realizes what he's suggesting, becoming the peak of paladins. Her brother, Kai, simply stands there, calmly confirming her fears. Kai explains his grand ambition. Since a royal paladin is the symbol of the strongest, if he, a dark knight, can achieve that title, he will become the undisputed strongest in both name and substance. As Chloe tries to argue, Kai cuts her off with a slam of his book. He passionately declares that if he succeeds, the disdain everyone holds toward dark knights will finally disappear. Suddenly, a stern voice cuts in, telling Kai that's enough. It's his father, Bloodia, a fellow dark knight with a commanding presence. Ash acknowledges that Kai, now 16, has found his own path, but he warns him that it will be a thorny one and asks if he's truly prepared. With unwavering determination, Kai confirms that he is. With a serious discussion concluded, Ash's tone changes. He tells his son to stop wasting time and go help his mother with dinner. The family sits down for dinner, but the tense atmosphere from earlier remains. As they begin to eat, someone pipes up, admitting they still can't agree with the decision. It's Chloe, still trying to reason with her brother. She argues that he's more than capable enough to have chosen an easier, more straightforward path in life. She continues, pointing out that if he had just stuck with the dark arts, he could have easily secured a spot in an honors course. Their mother, Noche, chimes in, playfully teasing Chloe that she's just upset she won't be able to go to school with her big brother. A flustered Chloe furiously denies it, trying to hide her blush. Noche then admits to Chloe that she's worried about him too. Chloe replies that holy jobs are out of Kai's area of expertise, and that he's got a few screws loose to begin with, before trying to backtrack on her words. Chloe yells at her mother to worry about the important things, but Noche is already lost in thought, wondering if the all-white holy uniform would look good on Kai. The chaos continues as their father compliments Chloe's uniform, causing her to get flustered all over again. Trying to steer the conversation, their mother claps her hands together and cheerfully asks what everyone thinks of the soup she made. Kai and Chloe pause and exchange a confused glance. A moment later, that confusion turns to pure horror as a terrible realization dawns on both of them. Both siblings begin to feel a rumbling in their stomachs. Kai groans, asking what poison she used this time. Their mother smiles, explaining that it's just a tiny bit of neurotoxin to help them build resistance. While their parents enjoy the meal, completely unfazed, the kids are coughing and struggling to breathe. Declaring she's had enough, Chloe's hand begins to glow with a dark aura as she prepares to cast a spell. With a ferocious roar, a giant skeletal beast erupts from the floor. As Chloe collapses, she orders her summon to quickly fetch the antitoxin from her bag. The beast returns with the antidote just in time. Kai sighs in relief as Chloe gulps it down, while their parents watch on as if this were a normal occurrence, their mother even commenting on how well-prepared her daughter is. After catching her breath, Chloe looks up as Kai holds the bottle out to her. He gestures with the potion, pointing out that she didn't finish it. But before she can react, Kai snatches the bottle and drinks the remaining antidote himself. He just shrugs, saying that you have to use any advantage you can get, even from an enemy. This pushes Chloe over the edge. In a rage, Chloe summons a massive, horned wraith, screaming at her brother for his stunt. Their parents, however, are completely unfazed by the argument, only sighing in annoyance and scolding Chloe for summoning a wraith indoors. Suddenly, the wraith stops, looming over the two siblings as a dark, menacing voice calls out to them. It's their father, Ash. With a stern look, he tells his children they're taking their jokes a bit too far, and they both freeze in place. Terrified of their father's wrath, Kai immediately apologizes, Even Chloe and her summons tremble before him. But Ash simply reminds Kai that the dinner their mother prepared is getting cold. Once things have calmed down, Ash informs his son that starting today, they will be spending more time on his training. He explains that since there isn't much time before enrollment begins, he can only teach him from his own experience as a dark class user. He adds that the training will surely come in handy for dealing with the issue of Kai's natural constitution. Understanding his father's concern, Kai bows deeply and thanks him. Kai looks at his family and understands their concern. They know just how dangerous the path he's chosen is, which is why they are so worried for him. Just then, their mother's cheerful voice cuts through the serious moment, reminding them that there's still some of the poisoned soup left on their plates. Time passes, and we see Kai at the entrance ceremony for the Holy Academy. He feels truly blessed to be there as an announcer calls the freshman representative to the stage. Kai grumbles to himself, thinking he'll never get used to the bright, white uniform. He looks up as the representative is introduced, Shelfer Clan Astrio. It's the Princess Shelfer, the very same girl Kai had rescued. She steps up to the podium and begins her speech to the new students. As she speaks, her eyes scan the crowd, and she spots Kai. She gives a slight, surprised gasp of recognition, and he gives her a small smile in return. After the ceremony, the new students begin to file out of the auditorium and spread out across the academy grounds. As Princess Shelfer walks through the hallway with her retinue, a voice calls out her name, and she stops to see who it is. It's Kai, giving her a friendly wave. The princess turns around, surprised to see him calling out to her so casually. Kai thanks her for helping him enroll in the academy. She replies that she saw him from the stage, and that it's a pleasure to finally make his acquaintance. She also adds that the uniform looks great on him. Their reunion is cut short when an attendant arrives, informing the princess that the headmistress is called for her. As Shelfer prepares to depart, Kai complains to himself that the uniform is still way too bright for his tastes. As they part ways, Shelfer notes that the next period is a practical lesson. She assumes he is starting in the elementary class, but encourages him, saying that with his skills, she is sure he'll be able to climb to a higher class in no time. Meanwhile, Princess Shelfer arrives at the headmistress's office. Her attendant warns her to be careful, but the princess is resolute, stating that she is prepared to take responsibility for her decision. Before entering, she pauses, a worried expression on her face as she wonders why on earth Kai would choose such a difficult path. Suddenly, she is jolted by the sound of panicked screams echoing from down the hall. She quickly realizes the sound is coming from the training grounds. Without hesitation, she and her attendants rush towards the commotion. She arrives to a shocking sight. In the middle of the field, Kai stands alone, surrounded by the unconscious bodies of dozens of students. On his very first day, in his very first practical lesson, he has single-handedly taken down his entire class. A horrifying scene unfolded on the training grounds. Dozens of students lay defeated, groaning in pain. Princess Shelfer arrived, her eyes wide with shock, unable to comprehend what had happened. In the middle of it all stood Kai, looking completely unfazed. Kai's gaze met hers, and he calmly acknowledged her presence, muttering her name. While the defeated students cried out in agony, Kai nonchalantly scratched the back of his head. He claimed he was just getting a light warm-up, but things somehow got out of hand before he even realized it. Shelfer rushed to a classmate's side, demanding to know what Kai had done to them. She suddenly remembered the headmistress's concerns, and a name echoed in her mind: Bloodia. The scene shifts to the headmistress's office. The headmistress asked if Shelfer had just mentioned the name Bloodia, and Shelfer, with a worried expression, confirmed that she had. The headmistress began to explain. Kai was a member of that notorious household, a top-notch Dark Knight. Headmistress Tanya Rustle explained that she only allowed Kai to enroll because he came with a recommendation from the royal family. She handed the document to Shelfer. As Shelfer looked at the paper, the name shocked her to her core: Kai Bloodia. It was the name of the legendary family that had supported the kingdom from the shadows since its very foundation. Tanya went on to describe Kai's terrifying lineage. His father, Ash Bloodia, was the infamous Dark Knight known as the Black Reaper of the battlefield. His mother, Noche Bloodia, was an expert in poisons and curses, considered the most powerful elder witch on the continent. And the list didn't stop there. Kai's younger sister, Chloe, was a prodigy necromancer who had controlled a wraith at the tender age of 10. Shelfer was speechless. His entire family consisted of top-tier figures from the world of darkness. The headmistress then focused on Kai himself. Whether in mission completion or monster subjugation, his numbers had already surpassed his legendary father's at the same age, breaking all historical records. He had the potential to become the strongest Dark Knight to ever exist. Shelfer could only stare in disbelief, the words echoing in her mind. The strongest? As further proof, Tanya reminded her of the recent cockatrice attack, pointing out that Kai's method of dealing with them was executed perfectly, straight out of a textbook. With pinpoint accuracy, he had severed the organ in their necks required for their petrifying breath, while leaving the organ that stores the liquid completely untouched. Hearing this, Shelfer swallowed hard, terrified by his chilling efficiency. Tanya then voiced her greatest concern. Why would someone from the kingdom's hidden dark side enroll in their academy? She warned that he could pose a real danger to the princess herself. Shelfer immediately protested, insisting that Kai had saved her life. The headmistress acknowledged that, but sternly reminded her of the fundamental conflict. He is a dark knight who lurks in the shadows, while she is royalty, a symbol of light. Taking Shelfer's hands, Tanya's tone softened. She confessed that she was worried for her, as she was already facing enough criticism as it was. This association could make things worse. After a moment of silence, the headmistress gave her final piece of advice: be extremely cautious of him. Shelfer reluctantly agreed, promising to take matters into her own hands if he tried anything suspicious. Back on the training field, Shelfer processed the headmistress's words. She looked at her fallen classmates, finally understanding the true power of a Dark Knight, the true power of Kai. But she quickly pushed those thoughts aside. This was no time to stand around. Deciding she needed to do something, she began to focus her own energy, and a faint golden light started to glow. Shelfer began her incantation, gathering sacred light in her hands as she prayed to the Merciful One. She floated into the air, unleashing her high-level spell, Holy Magic, Mercy. A brilliant light rained down, purifying the students of the ailments Kai had inflicted. As the students' pain subsided, Shelfer breathed a sigh of relief. Thankful that her magic worked, she turned to find someone to help carry them to the infirmary. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her wrist, startling her. It was Kai, offering to help carry the others. Flustered, Shelfer pulled her hand away. She thanked him for the offer, but insisted that he didn't need to do anything more. Later, at the infirmary, the medical staff thanked the princess for her help. They assured her the students would recover by evening and left them in their care, commenting that they'd heard a student with a dark job was responsible. As she left the infirmary, the nurses wished her well. By now, a steady rain had begun to fall outside. Walking through the rain under her umbrella, Shelfer felt relieved that everyone was safe. But her thoughts kept returning to Kai, and she couldn't help but wonder what he was truly after by enrolling in the academy. She remembered how he'd risked falling off a cliff just to save her when her carriage was attacked. His heroic actions stood in stark contrast to the terrifying warnings from the headmistress. Perhaps she had the wrong idea about him after all. As she pondered this, a sudden, sharp sound cut through the rain, making her jump. She turned to find an unbelievable sight. Kai was standing in the downpour, practicing his sword swings with ferocious intensity. His movements were powerful and precise, his feet firmly planted as he cut through the rain-soaked air again and again. Holding her umbrella, Shelfer stared in disbelief. She finally called out to him, asking what on earth he thought he was doing. Without breaking his rhythm, Kai answered, his voice strained with effort. He was just doing practice swings. Shelfer was shocked that he'd been out in the rain this whole time. Kai paused for a moment, explaining that he was trying to cool his head. His sword clattered to the ground as he suddenly fell to his knees. He apologized profusely, both to her and to his classmates, for all the trouble he had caused. Shelfer watched, completely bewildered by his sudden apology. Clenching her fist, she demanded to know why. Why was he acting this way? Her confusion and frustration finally boiled over. She yelled at him, demanding to know what his problem was and what he truly was. Tears welling in her eyes, she recounted his contradictory actions. First he saves her, then he enrolls in the academy. She confessed that she just couldn't understand him anymore. She listed off all the confusing facts. He's a dark knight, a Bloodia, yet he's so hard on himself and strangely straightforward. Stomping her foot in the puddle, she yelled that she'd had enough of the confusion. With tears streaming down her face, she screamed that he wasn't making any sense. She just couldn't understand him at all. Finally, she asked the question that had been burning in her mind. Why did he even enroll in the academy? Standing resolute in the pouring rain, Kai looked her straight in the eye and gave his answer. To become a royal paladin. Shelfer was stunned into silence. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She asked if he was serious, reminding him that royal paladins were the very best of the best. It was a position someone with a dark job could never even dream of. Still reeling from his declaration, she yelled at him, questioning how he could ever imagine becoming a royal paladin. The wind and rain whipped around her as she struggled to process his impossible dream. Kai's expression was heavy with sadness as he quietly asked if a dark knight truly couldn't become one. Exasperated and crying, Shelfer shot back, yelling that of course they couldn't. Kai looked up, letting the rain soak him completely. He explained that the difficulty of his goal was exactly what made the challenge so worthwhile. The princess was confused by his unwavering spirit. Kai declared that if there was no precedent for someone like him, then he would just have to become the first one. With a look of absolute conviction, he made a vow to become the very first Dark Knight to ever be named a royal paladin. He promised her that he would prove to everyone at the academy that she had made the right choice in believing in him. As if making a promise to the heavens themselves, he yelled out his ultimate goal. He would definitely become a royal paladin. Watching him, Shelfer couldn't help but wonder what it was that spurred him to keep moving forward with such intensity. As she stared at his back, she began to understand. This person wasn't the monster everyone made him out to be. She realized then that despite his overwhelming power and fearsome reputation, Kai was simply just a big child. Kai, however, completely misunderstood her silence. He got flustered, asking if he'd said something so strange that she was at a loss for words. To her, he was just honest, innocent, and fearless. Finishing her thought, she suddenly poked him in the chest, calling out his name. She began to lecture him, saying he first needed to become aware of the huge power gap between himself and the others, and then he had to apologize to his classmates tomorrow. And as another point, she reminded him that she'd told him to call her Shell. Kai stammered for a moment, admitting she was right. He struggled to say her nickname, and she made him repeat it over and over, correcting him each time he got it wrong. Finally, he said it correctly. A bright, pleased smile spread across Shelfer's face as she told him he'd done a good job. At that moment, Kai looked up and noticed that the rain had stopped. As he spoke, Shelfer neatly folded up her umbrella. Shelfer confessed that she didn't know if a Dark Knight could ever truly become a royal paladin. However, she was curious and wanted to see the path he would forge for himself. Kai looked up at the clearing sky, a faint smile on his lips. He felt the same. He wanted to see for himself just how far his own path could take him. But Shelfer quickly brought him back to reality. She said hard work was fine, but he needed to pay more attention to his body, pointing out that the skin on his hand was peeling off. Kai brushed it off, saying it would heal with willpower, but she immediately told him it wouldn't. Taking his hand, she cast a holy magic spell. Cure. But the moment the light touched him, Kai's body twitched, and he cried out in sharp pain. He gritted his teeth, still in agony from her touch. Shelfer looked on, completely confused as to why her healing magic would cause pain. Misinterpreting the problem, she simply concluded that she needed to try casting the spell one more time. Confused about why her healing wasn't working, Shelfer decided to try her most powerful spell. She prayed for her sacred light to bring peace to him, completely unaware of what she was about to do. But Kai stopped her. With a pained smile, he explained that his body was dark type to the core. It rejects all forms of holy mana, causing healing spells to have the exact opposite effect on him. The revelation hit Shelfer with the force of a physical blow. She let out a shriek of disbelief, her face frozen in pure shock. The horrifying truth dawned on her. Her spells weren't healing him. They were actually inflicting damage. She tried to stop the spell she had already started, but it was too late. The powerful holy magic, Cure Embrace, slammed into Kai. He screamed in agony as the sacred energy tore through his body like a poison. As Kai fell to his knees, Shelfer broke down in tears. She apologized over and over, crying that she never meant to hurt him. Even through the pain, Kai tried to comfort her, gently saying her name. He even joked, asking if she was still mad at him. Shelfer, flustered, shouted that wasn't it at all, while Kai just told her to come at him again. Meanwhile, in a forest far away, a group of shadowy figures noted that Princess Shelfer had safely made it to the academy. One of them, a man in a robe, reprimanded a masked kunoichi. He mentioned that the recent cockatrice incident resulted in 0 casualties because of an unforeseen circumstance, a circumstance that had just enrolled in the academy. He warned her to be more careful, or there might not be a next time. A woman in the group commented that they'd been given a new toy, so there was no need to rush their plans. The leader sliced a photo of Shelfer in two, his eyes glinting with malice. He declared that at all costs, Shelfer clan Astrio would die by their hands. The next day, in a grand lecture hall at the academy, a student angrily shouted at someone, demanding to know where they thought they were sitting. The person being yelled at was Kai. He had calmly taken a seat, only to be confronted by 2 furious students demanding he leave immediately. Kai simply asked why, pointing out that it was the advanced class. The students began to mock him, calling him out for being a Dark Knight and a member of the Bloodia family. They insulted him, calling him an uneducated elementary graduate who had no right to be there. Murmurs spread through the classroom. Students whispered about this spooky Bloodia, wondering what he was doing there and assuming he'd use some dirty tricks to get in. Kai simply ignored them. The angry student then revealed the problem. The seat Kai had taken belonged to Lady Milia, a person she claimed was not someone the likes of him could even approach. The name seemed to catch Kai's attention. Just then, a figure made a dramatic entrance, stepping confidently into the lecture hall. It was Lady Milia herself. The other students were immediately starstruck, praising her as a true paladin from one of the 3 great holy houses. The students who had been accosting Kai quickly greeted her, and she politely asked if something was wrong. The student stammered, trying to explain the situation. Milia's eyes landed on the seat where Kai was sitting, and she simply said, "Oh, my seat." Without another word, Milia began walking up the steps towards Kai, leaving the other students stunned. Kai watched her approach, a hint of surprise on his face. Milia Sorrel, a paladin and the eldest daughter of the Sorrel family, one of the 3 holy households, stood with her arms crossed, looking down with a thoughtful expression. The student who had been yelling at Kai slammed her hands on the desk, stammering Milia's name in shock as the noble paladin stood silently before Kai. But then, to everyone's astonishment, Milia broke into a wide, friendly smile. She greeted Kai warmly, saying it had been a while. The other students looked on in disbelief as Kai realized this was the famous Milia they were all talking about. The casual way they spoke sent ripples of shock through the classroom. Milia commented on him enrolling, and Kai simply confirmed it, their easygoing chat completely ignoring the tension in the room. Milia smiled, saying she was glad they would be learning together and offering her help anytime he needed it. A flustered Kai tried to respond, but it was clear his childhood friend had already decided to take him under her wing. When a classmate asks about her relationship with Kai, Milia Sorrel cheerfully explains that they're practically childhood friends, as their families have known each other for ages. The classroom erupts in shock. The other students can't believe that Lady Milia, from a renowned holy household, is on good terms with someone from a dark family. As Milia walks by, two students gossip about her connection to Kai, only for one to quickly shush the other. Milia pauses, giving him a sharp, questioning glare. Just as the gossip settles, a new commotion begins. The students are in an uproar as they realize that Princess Shelfer herself has just entered the classroom. Ignoring her designated seat at the front, Princess Shelfer walks straight to the back of the room. She stops right at Kai's desk and gives him a warm morning greeting, leaving everyone else speechless. A nearby student, who identifies himself as Kai's tutor, timidly asks the princess if she knows him. Shelfer simply smiles and asks the tutor to get along with Kai, despite his peculiar nature. The news causes yet another uproar. The students can't comprehend why the princess of the Holy Kingdom would associate with Kai, let alone know that he has a personal tutor. Princess Shelfer then turns to formally greet Milia Sorrel, expressing gratitude for her family's long-standing loyalty. Milia humbly replies that the kind words are wasted on her. As class is about to start, Princess Shelfer gestures for Kai and Milia to take their seats. But Milia confidently plops down right next to Kai. She claims it was her spot to begin with and offers to share her book, since he doesn't have one. Shelfer watches, completely stunned. When a nearby student asks if they know each other, Milia doesn't just say yes. She playfully interlocks her fingers with Kai's, declaring they're actually childhood friends. Milia adds that she sees him more like a helpless little brother. As the teacher starts the lesson, Shelfer quietly makes her way towards their desk, a thoughtful look on her face. Suddenly, both Kai and Milia look over in surprise as Princess Shelfer sits down right on the other side of Kai. As she sits squished between Kai and Milia, Shelfer feels a strange, fuzzy feeling inside her chest. Milia ignores her and pulls a flustered Kai even closer, insisting they need to be close to share the textbook. The princess watches this unfold, her eyes wide with shock. Not to be outdone, Shelfer grabs Kai's other arm, pulling him towards her. She declares that she's his tutor, so he should be relying on her instead. The commotion finally catches the attention of the teacher, who looks absolutely furious. A ridiculously tense atmosphere fills the classroom, putting all the other students on edge as the rivalry between the three at the back of the room continues to rumble. Later that day, the scene transitions to a large, imposing mansion as someone announces their return home. Kai wearily walks up the stairs, completely drained. He can't stop thinking about the chaotic love triangle that erupted in class, leaving him totally exhausted. He takes a quick mental note that his mom and sister are downstairs, and his dad isn't home yet. But just as he's about to head to his room, he freezes, sensing an unfamiliar presence from behind the door. He cautiously peeks inside and sees shattered glass all over the floor. Realizing the intruder came in through the window, Kai slams the door open and rushes in. To his utter disbelief, the intruder is just Milia Sorrel, casually sitting on his bed. She has the nerve to say he freaked her out, while Kai just sighs, exhausted, and says the line should be his. Kai exasperatedly tells her to stop breaking his window every time she visits. Milia just scoffs, asking if that's any way to thank the knockout paladin Milia for coming all this way to hang out. He suggests she try using the front door for once. But Milia cheekily retorts that it's his fault for keeping the window, arguing it's the shortest route from her house to his. Milia proudly states that she has to maintain the Sorrel family's reputation at the academy. As he changes, Kai warns her that if she dares tell the princess or their classmates about her visits, he'll stab her. Suddenly, Milia starts cackling uncontrollably. She finds it absolutely adorable that the princess was trying to compete with her, remarking that royalty is just as human as anyone else. Kai just tells her to stop being so vulgar. A familiar face, Milia, decides to test Kai's stoicism. She teases him, suggesting that even if she showed him her underwear, he wouldn't react at all. To her feigned surprise, he bluntly agrees, which seems to annoy her even more. As Kai takes off his shirt, Milia's playful mood fades. She notices the fresh scars crisscrossing his back, remarking that he has even more than before. He simply confirms her observation, explaining that he can't let his combat senses get dull. Milia watches him with a complicated expression, sighing as she asks just how strong he intends to become. Her curiosity gets the better of her, and she begins poking at his wounds, noting a particularly new one. Kai flinches in pain, surprised by her sudden prodding. As Milia continues her teasing assault, a grin spreading across her face, Kai yelps for her to stop, but his pleas only seem to encourage her. Milia's laughter echoes as she declares that this is getting fun, completely ignoring Kai's protests. Just then, the bedroom door creaks open. Kai's sister, Chloe, appears to call them for dinner, but she stops dead in her tracks, her eyes widening at the compromising scene of Milia straddling her brother on the floor. An aura of pure rage erupts from Chloe. She summons ghostly skulls, screaming at Milia and calling her a vixen for daring to touch her precious brother. Kai, caught in the middle, frantically tries to de-escalate. He scolds Chloe for summoning undead indoors while telling Milia to stop provoking her. Milia, unfazed, simply laughs and calls Chloe a pipsqueak. Chloe, pushed to her limit, tearfully screams that she's going to murder her. Milia, thoroughly enjoying the chaos, continues her taunts, asking if Chloe still has the habit of kissing Kai's photo goodnight. Kai, looking completely drained, can only cross his arms and mutter that they sure are hitting it off, even as he begs them to stop destroying the room. Later, the chaos subsides as the family gathers for dinner. Milia has joined them, politely apologizing for imposing, but the family welcomes her warmly. At the table, Chloe glares daggers at Milia for sitting next to her brother. Noche, their mother, apologizes, but Chloe's hostility is barely contained as she offers Milia's soup, adding that she has an antidote ready. Sensing the rising tension, their father, Ash, skillfully cuts in. While slicing his steak, he turns to Milia and changes the subject, asking about Kai's performance at the academy. Milia gives a polite and diplomatic answer, stating that the semester has just begun and the advanced course's practical classes haven't even started yet. From the side, Chloe mutters that Milia's polite tone is making her cringe. Ash continues the conversation, noting that the teachers in the Holy Expert program are hand-picked elites and that Kai surely has a lot to learn from them. Ash then formally asks Milia to keep looking out for Kai. Milia smiles and assures him that Kai is in safe hands with her. Noche smiles, remarking how reliable Milia is, almost like Kai's big sister. This comment sends Chloe over the edge, who slams the table and shouts that she'll never allow it. Later, Kai brings up the upcoming practical classes and asks if Milia is still bothered by something that happened in the elementary course. But Chloe, ever vigilant, interrupts to declare that Milia will never be her sister-in-law and threatens to stab her if she gets too close to Kai. Ignoring Chloe's outburst, Milia steers the conversation back to the academy, mentioning that even Ash said the teachers are all elites. She specifically brings up this year's advanced course teacher, a paladin named Flint, who is young but incredibly skilled. However, Milia adds that there's a catch. Everything about Flint career until a few years ago is completely unknown, shrouding the new teacher in a veil of mystery. Ash decides that since he was recommended by a noble, there shouldn't be a problem. With the conversation over, Noche urges everyone to focus on eating. The scene then transitions to the next day at the Holy Expert Academy, where all the students have gathered. A man with long, reddish-brown hair steps forward, introducing himself to the students as Flint, the tutor for their practical classes. His friendly demeanor and handsome looks immediately charm the female students. He humbly states that he's also new to teaching, asking them to learn together as fellow fledglings. While Shelfer seems impressed by the new teacher's introduction, Kai watches him with a silent, unreadable expression, sizing up the man who will be guiding their class. Flint orders the students to line up. As they assemble, his charming smile twists into a sinister, predatory grin. He thinks to himself how much he's looking forward to the valuable time they'll all be sharing, hinting at a dark and dangerous school term ahead. In a class for holy magic, the instructor showered praise on his students. He complimented Miss Astrio for her elegant and delicate holy power and Miss Sorrel for her magnificent torrent of it, reminding them all that mastering the basics is key. But while the others practiced, the scene changes to a different location, where a lone figure stands before an ominous, dark presence. It was Bloodia, attempting to cast the same basic spell, Bless. With a desperate cry, he unleashed his magic, but instead of light, the ground around him began to bubble and spark with a dark energy. His classmates reeled back in disgust. They cried out, complaining about the terrible color and foul stench that filled the air, barely avoiding stepping in the sludge. The instructor grimly identified the result not as holy magic, but as its opposite, dark magic poison. Hearing this, the other students looked on in shock and fear, while Kai could only stand there, mortified. Looking at the murky poison he had created, Kai could only wonder to himself what he was doing wrong. Later, looking utterly defeated, Kai wandered the halls. He desperately thought about who he could turn to for help, wondering what he should do now. Finding Shelfer, Kai confessed his struggles, admitting that holy magic seemed impossible for him. Shelfer listened in silence, her expression unreadable. Shelfer's heart thumped in her chest. She was secretly overjoyed that Kai had come to her for help, trying to hide her happy expression as she considered what to do. Thinking to herself that he had grown, she offered to practice with him after school. Kai was thrilled by the offer, but quickly became hesitant, worried that his dark magic would just cause more trouble for everyone. Shelfer paused, realizing he had a point. She apologized, admitting that while she was flattered he came to her, perhaps it would be best to ask a real professional. At her suggestion, an idea sparked in Kai's mind. She recommended Mr. Flint, another teacher who could also teach him about the ways of the paladins. Flint's words echoed in his mind, explaining that being in a party means using individual expertise to cover each other's shortcomings, because fighting alone leaves you vulnerable to surprise attacks. Convinced, Kai thanked Shelfer and sprinted off immediately to find Mr. Flint. Shelfer tried to offer to go with him, but he was already gone in a flash. Kai spotted Mr. Flint and called out to him, leaving Shelfer behind to pout in frustration. After Kai explained his situation, Flint stood thoughtfully in the training field, observing the barrel of weapons and his prospective student. Flint told Kai that the first thing he needed to do was change his mindset. He bluntly stated that Kai's current way of thinking was far too much like a dark knight. As they stood before the castle, Flint posed a question to Kai, asking him to describe what a dark knight is. Kai answered that a dark knight is a blade meant to eliminate enemies without fail. Flint seemed to accept this answer, and then asked him to describe a paladin in contrast. Kai guessed that a paladin must be a shield. Flint confirmed this, explaining that a paladin symbolizes the power to protect, just like the shield emblem of their order. Kai argued his point, believing that offense is the best defense, and that staying on the defensive won't win battles. But Flint simply smiled, telling Kai that was exactly the point, and that he had a deep misconception about what a shield really is. With a clang, Flint raised his shield, ready to begin the lesson. Flint dared Kai to attack him with about 30% of his full power. Kai was hesitant, but Flint, admitting he wasn't good at holding back, urged him to try. The two took their positions on the training field. Kai charged, leaping into the air and bringing his massive sword down with full force. But to his shock, Flint didn't dodge. Instead, he met the attack head-on with his shield, stopping the blade with a loud clang. In a blur of motion, Flint didn't just block the attack. He expertly shifted its trajectory, redirecting the force of Kai's powerful blow. Flint coolly explained that the technique he just used was called parrying. Then, without missing a beat, he moved on to his next demonstration. As Kai jumped back to create distance, Flint closed the gap in an instant, lunging forward with his shield leading the way. He called it a shield bash. After demonstrating the defensive moves, Flint announced he was now going on the offensive, much to Kai's surprise. Flint unleashed a rapid series of attacks. Kai was thrown on the defensive, grunting as he struggled to block the swift, powerful strikes from the teacher's sword. Kai quickly realized the problem. Flint was using his shield to completely hide the trajectory of his sword, making it impossible for Kai to predict where the next attack would come from. Realizing he couldn't just defend, Kai took a deep breath. With a determined shout, he lunged forward, deciding to meet Flint's offense with his own. Flint watched Kai's counterattack approach, a slight, almost mocking smile on his face. With barely any effort, Flint deflected Kai's sword, casually remarking that it was a good try, but not quite good enough. In a flash, Flint spun past him. Kai, completely outmaneuvered, could only watch in shock as his teacher appeared behind him, his eyes wide with surprise. With another powerful blow, Flint sent Kai skidding across the ground, his feet screeching against the dirt as he struggled to absorb the impact. Forced to his knee, Kai looked up in awe, admitting that if he hadn't backed down, he wouldn't have escaped unscathed. Flint simply chuckled, complimenting him on his good eye for seeing through the moves. Flint then explained the weakness of a Dark Knight. Their style is like a straight line, powerful, but the moment it's fully extended, it's completely vulnerable to attacks from the side. Just as he said, once Kai committed to his straight-line attack, Flint was able to effortlessly halt him, holding his blade to Kai's neck to prove his point. Flint then posed another question. If a Dark Knight is a line, what shape would best describe a paladin? After a moment of thought, Kai answered, a cube or a sphere. A brilliant smile spread across Flint's face. He praised Kai for starting to understand. When blocking, a paladin is like a cube, but when parrying, they're like a sphere, a shape that diverts momentum. Flint continued his explanation. Unlike the single line of a Dark Knight, a paladin has a solid, three-dimensional structure. He elaborated that this spatial structure is what allows a paladin to envelop and protect people, and that the very same principle applies to the use of holy magic. Flint explained that because dark skills are associated with stealing or sacrificing, Kai couldn't perceive holy magic correctly. He suggested that focusing on shields and holy spells for a while would be beneficial, even if it was outside Kai's area of expertise, and Kai eagerly agreed. Deeply grateful, Kai bowed low, thanking his teacher for the guidance. Flint watched him, murmuring his name thoughtfully as an idea seemed to form. Impressed by Kai's strength, Flint admitted that he was also dabbling in samurai skills and asked if Kai would mind being a test subject. Kai, always up for a challenge, immediately agreed. During a private lesson, the teacher, Flint Jetta, smiles warmly at his student, Kai, thanking him for the opportunity to practice. But in the next instant, his friendly demeanor vanishes. Flint draws his sword with blinding speed, his expression turning deadly serious. Kai shudders, completely caught off guard by his teacher's sudden change in intensity. Before Kai can even process what's happening, Flint disappears from sight, moving faster than his student's eyes can track. Appearing behind him with a blade to his neck, Flint calmly declares that he gives up, leaving Kai sweating and defeated before the match even started. Flint bursts into laughter, spitting out a piece of candy and apologizing for going all out, explaining that he thought Kai was ready for it. After Kai asks what that incredible speed was, Flint explains the technique, a combination of a samurai skill called shakuchi dash and an Iaedo sword draw. Kai is left in awe, admitting he could hardly see a thing. Flint smiles, pleased that his own skills as a samurai are improving, and thanks Kai for the feedback. The two shake hands, with Kai enthusiastically thanking Flint for the valuable experience and both agreeing to continue improving themselves. But from a nearby window, a sinister figure watches them, a gloved hand pressing against the glass as he mutters Kai bloody his name. The scene shifts to a group of shadowy figures. One, a hooded researcher, smiles with morbid curiosity, commenting on Kai's dark constitution and his desire to dissect the boy's corpse. An old man among them cackles, reminding the group that their primary target is the princess, and all they need is proof of her death. Another member, a large man in heavy armor, gets excited, eager to fight the strong opponent they were just observing. But a masked woman quickly shuts him down, telling the The tension in the room is thick as the assassins gather. Enraged by her insult, the muscular warrior clenches his fist and turns on the masked woman. The woman doesn't back down, pulling out a kunai. She grins, threatening that if he keeps going, it will be worse than just harm. Just as they're about to fight, the armored man declares it's been enough fun for now. He seems pleased with her spirit, but she tells him to stop. The hooded researcher muses that it would be quieter if they all just killed each other. Suddenly, a new figure appears, and the old man asks why he just stood by and watched. The man who appeared is none other than Flint, revealing his true form with two-toned hair. He coolly addresses his bickering subordinates, apologizing to the warrior and explaining that shackling Kai with false teachings was a necessary part of the plan. His gaze fixes on Kai and Princess Shelfer in the distance. With a chilling smile, Flint declares it's time to get rid of the nuisances, assuring his crew that their victory is certain and the princess's head is ripe for the harvest. The story shifts to a memory of a training session. From a distance, we see the clash of wooden swords. Up close, Kai is getting completely overpowered by his training partner. His opponent, a massive, scarred man, is his own father, Bloodia. He mercilessly taunts his son, asking if this is really all the strength he has. Ash takes a breath, ready to end the session, but Kai refuses to stop. His eyes burning with determination, he begs his father to continue. A smirk appears on Ash's face. He decides to push his son into a tighter corner, tapping his wooden sword and activating a skill, Arm's Altar. In an instant, Ash's wooden practice sword transforms into a real, shimmering blade. Kai can only stare in awe at his father's otherworldly transmutation speed. A small text box explains that Arm's Altar is a skill that changes a weapon's properties in exchange for life force or mana. Ash tells him this is no time to be staring. Realizing the stakes have been raised, Kai knows he can't keep fighting his father head-on. He leaps back, trying to create some distance as his father leans in for the attack. But as his father watches, Kai doesn't just retreat. He takes a stance, his own wooden sword beginning to glow with a dark energy. With a powerful yell, Kai unleashes his own Arm's Altar, attempting to copy his father's move as he leaps to meet the attack. Their blades clash. Ash grinds his teeth, impressed. He admits his son's transmutation speed isn't bad, but it's not enough. Ash easily overpowers him, noting that the quality of his son's transformed blade is severely lacking. With a powerful swing, he declares it's time to end this. But just as his father's final blow is about to land, Kai's eyes dart towards an opening, a flicker of an idea crossing his mind. Suddenly, he uses Shadow Rush, a rare high-speed skill for Dark Knights, moving so fast that even his father is momentarily surprised. Kai appears behind him, yelling "Gotcha!" as he swings his axe. But Ash has already turned to block it, having predicted the move perfectly. The spar ends with Kai's immediate surrender. Ash puts his weapon down, complimenting his son's nice try with the Shadow Rush. While taking a break, Ash combs his hair back and asks a serious question. He notes the skill might actually suit Kai's style, and he's curious why his son decided to learn it. Kai explains that a teacher at the academy had shown him a similar move called Shikuchi Dash. Inspired, he decided to practice it himself, unaware that the teacher he admired is the very man plotting his demise. Ash affectionately rubs Kai's head, much to his son's annoyance. He tells him to keep at it, reminding him that his tireless effort is his greatest weapon. Sitting together, Ash admits that while he doesn't personally like using Shadow Rush in his own combat style, he was surprised that Kai was also able to use it. Ash holds up a finger, ready to impart some fatherly wisdom. He tells Kai that there's a trick to using the skill. Kai is confused, so his father gives him a cryptic instruction: don't think about moving. He elaborates on the paradox. While it is a movement skill, if you become too conscious of your desire to move, the enemy will sense your intent and react to it. Ash puts on his glasses, his tone shifting from a warrior to a teacher. He explains that such paradoxes are a natural part of mastering any skill, especially combat. He uses the metaphor of a coin to illustrate his point. Offense and defense are just two sides of the same coin, useless without the other. He correctly guesses that defense isn't Kai's strong suit, which his son quietly admits. Ash continues his lesson, explaining that a predictable sword that only knows how to attack is not to be feared. True strength comes from learning both sides and finding a perfect balance without leaning towards either. As Kai mulls over the concept of balancing both sides, his father asks him a deeper question. What is the reason he swings his sword? Kai answers with conviction. He fights to learn what it means to be the strongest, and for the sake of his own pride. Ash listens, summarizing that, in other words, Kai fights for his own sake. Ash tells him that while that drive isn't wrong, it will only get him so far. He then imparts the most important lesson of the day. To reach the next level, Kai must learn to swing his sword not for himself, but to protect someone else. Ash's words echoed in Kai's mind, a warning about finding the balance between fighting for himself and protecting others. Kai admitted he didn't fully grasp the lesson yet, but promised his father he would keep it in mind. Ash seemed satisfied with that for now. But Ash's tone turned serious. He told his son that an opportunity to protect someone would present itself very soon, leaving Kai looking puzzled. From a distance, a lone figure watched them. She was surprised that Bloodia had noticed her presence so easily. With a powerful leap, Ash motioned for her to come down. Realizing that any further surveillance would be too risky, the masked woman quickly retreated. She reported back to a man named Flint, who praised her work. Commenting on how scary the Reaper, Ash was, he decided they would proceed with their initial plan. Elsewhere, a sinister old man was being updated. The preparations were complete, though using a holy spell had apparently been a hassle. A hooded figure questioned Flint if neutralizing Bloodia would really be that easy. Flint just smiled, confident that his act as a good teacher would ensure the plan's success. He boasted about how Kai was eagerly following his instructions, training hard to become a paladin, which made his companion burst into laughter. Flint's friendly demeanor vanished, replaced by a twisted, evil grin. He reveled in the irony of a dark knight trying to become a paladin, unknowingly weakening himself for their cause. His companions agreed. With Flint's guidance, Kai wouldn't be able to use his full power. One of them sarcastically called Flint an ideal teacher. Flint added that this was the perfect opportunity, and he even had a special present for Kai that he was sure his student would love. He revealed his plan. The next day, during the joint drill between the Holy Expert and the Dark Extra, would be the perfect time to deliver his little gift. When asked about the other students and teachers, Flint gave a chillingly simple order. Make quick work of them. With a cold look, he declared they would line up the heads of the fallen so their princess wouldn't feel lonely, as his monstrous allies grinned in anticipation. Flint explained that his superiors had told him it was acceptable for a few commoners to disappear under mysterious circumstances. But he had his own ambitions, muttering that he didn't plan on being their tool forever. For now, however, he and his fellow assassins would focus on the job at hand. His eyes burned with malicious intent as he made a simple, terrifying declaration. We're going to wreak havoc. Flint stood with his group of assassins, their dark silhouettes a promise that the coming event would be a total massacre. And so, the next day arrived. Students from both sides gathered for the joint drill, the air buzzing with competitive energy as the opening ceremony began. An instructor addressed the students, reminding them that the results of the drills would heavily influence their future careers and urging them to give it their all. As soon as the announcement ended, the students erupted into a frenzy, scrambling to form parties and calling out for healers and paladins to join them. The competition was fiercest for two particular students, Lady Milia, known as the paladin among paladins, and Princess Shelfer, who possessed the ultra-rare bishop job. To everyone's surprise, both Milia and Shelfer approached Kai. Milia bluntly declared she'd be his tank since he was terrible at defense, while Shelfer offered her services as a buffer, leaving Kai completely stunned. The entire student body was left speechless and utterly confused by this unexpected development. The crowd erupted in protest, yelling that it wasn't fair. However, an instructor coolly remarked that having connections is also a skill, shutting down their complaints. As Kai scanned the crowd, he noticed that Mr. Flint was nowhere to be seen. A voice from behind sarcastically asked if he wasn't confident in his party, despite having the princess with him. Suddenly, a voice cried out, and a small figure began forcefully pushing her way through the crowded students. Out of breath, Chloe finally made it through the crowd. Spotting Kai, she put on a clumsy act, pretending their meeting was just a coincidence. Immediately, other students swarmed Chloe, begging her to join their parties. Milia, however, saw right through Chloe's act, correctly guessing that her brother's little sister didn't have a team yet. Putting on a dazzling smile, Chloe turned down the offers, falsely claiming her brother insisted she join his party. Milia immediately called her out, pointing out she just wanted to be with her big bro. The two girls immediately started bickering. Chloe snapped at the low-life paladin, but Milia smugly retorted that as Kai's classmate, she had joined his party long before Chloe even showed up. Shelfer, watching the argument, innocently asked Kai if the girl was his little sister. Kai confirmed it was Chloe, who finally seemed to notice the princess standing beside her brother. As Shelfer tried to introduce herself, Chloe suddenly stepped forward, getting uncomfortably close and staring intently, which made the princess visibly flustered. Kai called out to his sister, but Chloe simply clicked her tongue in annoyance, clearly not happy about this new girl's presence. Unfazed, Shelfer formally introduced herself as Shelfer Clan Astrio, the fourth princess of the country, leaving Chloe completely dumbfounded. The revelation sent a shockwave through the crowd as the surrounding students erupted in disbelief, realizing the girl they knew as Shell was actually royalty. Shelfer politely greeted Chloe, and Kai added that she was also his tutor. This only fueled Milia's teasing, who noted that yet another beauty was now orbiting her brother, sending Chloe into a silent rage. As Chloe seethed at her brother's obliviousness and Milia laughed at Shelfer's flustered reaction, the chaotic party formation was finally coming to an end. Just then, an instructor's voice cut through the chatter using a transmission spell. Now that the parties were finalized, he announced it was time to explain the rules of the dungeon clearing exercise. He explained the goal: retrieve a flag from deep within a dungeon in the forest. To make things interesting, sabotaging other parties and interference from teachers were both permitted. Another instructor then stepped forward, making sure everyone had equipped their control rings. She explained that the rings convert damage into numerical points, and once a student's life points hit 0, they would be immediately disqualified. With a final check to ensure everyone understood the rules, the instructor declared that time was now their enemy, and with a thunderous shout, announced the official start of the joint drills. The students charged forward with a roar. As the other students rushed off, Kai gathered his own powerhouse party. With Chloe, Milia, and Princess Shelfer by his side, he confirmed they were ready and set off towards the forest.